Okay, good morning and welcome everyone to our May 20th, 2024, 9 a.m. strategic planning meeting. Let the record reflect that we have 3 commissioners present. I know Commissioner Jordan wasn't going to be able to make it this morning, so we have Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Waldrop, and Commissioner Cuney. I'm not sure about Commissioner French. He's going to be a little late. Okay, Commissioner French will just be showing up a little bit late, so you will see him when he enters the room. So with that, we will go ahead and get started and start with Josh Grant and Ashley Campbell.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. So Josh is going to do most of the talking, but I just wanted to kick us off. So probably about a month and a half ago, we had chatted about potentially looking at adding a fitness center to our public works building. And the commissioners asked us to go do a survey and ensure that that is something that would be beneficial for our employees, something that's desired. So we have since completed the survey and Josh is going to walk through the results. It went incredibly well and he'll talk through it, but lots of good feedback. And so we wanted to give you all that feedback and then talk about potential next steps and determine which direction you would like us to go. So I'm going to give it over to Josh.
All right, thank you, Ashley. So as Ashley stated, we did a survey. We developed just a quick brief survey. I think potentially some of you in this room saw the survey and may have taken it. Those questions were sent to all the employees throughout Spokane County. We left it open for 1 week between April 23rd and April 30th. In that time, we received 527 responses from our employees, which is significantly more than we anticipated receiving. And so
it's actually the highest response we've ever seen on any survey sent that didn't offer some sort of drawing for our participation. So it really spoke to people wanting to provide their participation and feedback. And we also only sent it one time via email and then added it to a newsflash. So that is the least amount of publicizing we've ever done and the highest responses we've ever seen.
And we were specifically targeting those individuals who are on campus. And so that's where we're hoping to receive the most feedback because with the outlying buildings, we weren't sure if people were there would use an on-campus fitness center. But we did receive 462 responses from individuals who work on the central campus. And so I kind of have broken it down. Next slide, Ron. Broken it down. For those individuals who did identify which departments they were from. So I looked at all the departments and figured out which ones were centrally located on campus. And so this is the breakdown of those who work on campus or departments here. So pretty good cross coverage response rate. Next slide. So the first question we asked is, the employees are, do you currently have a gym membership? And it was pretty evenly split, 45-54 on the employees, with 54% of our employees who responded indicating they don't currently have a gym membership. Next slide. And to gain a sense for those who did respond, how often they would utilize their gym currently, we asked if, it's 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week. So I kind of wanted to get an average. And as you can see, for those who have a gym membership, it was pretty evenly split, but the main focus was around 2 to 4 days a week is where a majority of the employees responded that they currently utilize their gym. Next slide. So there's a typo here, I didn't realize it.
So this question was actually
supposed to be, if there was or what areas of fitness you're interested in. And so we asked about cardio, strength, flexibility, mobility, or any combination, just kind of see where employees were interested in getting more fit at. And so once again, it was kind of evenly spread across with no particular area up there. Next slide. So question number 4, if we created a fitness center on campus, that offered the ability to do individually led workouts or fitness classes, would employees be interested in utilizing it? And as you can see, 71% of the employees surveyed said yes, they were extremely interested in utilizing an on-campus fitness area.
And what's cool about this slide, so we do have Julie Tanani with us as a wellness coordinator, and as a part of her contract, she actually does offer different fitness classes. It's been incredibly difficult for us to find space for her to do that in. And so typically she offers her fitness classes in the summer when she can do things like walking groups or utilize the green area between the IT and HR building. And so in the winter, she really has more kind of YouTube instructional videos. With having a fitness center that had space in it for individually or group class fitness, it really would offer her an opportunity as well to be able to offer a better suite of classes for our employees to utilize all year long. So this was incredibly interesting for me to see, knowing that it would be a really good complement with what Julie has to offer us and just hasn't been able to give us at her full capacity due to our locations.
Next slide. Oh, previous slide, maybe you're right. I didn't realize you went.
You guys have different versions.
What happened? Either way, oh, here it is. And so we asked about, because we wanted to know if cost would have an impact on the employees. And so we did ask if it was no cost or low cost, and available 24/7 to employees. Would that make them more or less likely to utilize it? And as you can see, it was resoundingly more likely to use it. And so did not look like, even if by throwing in a low cost, that would impact the employees to negatively not use it. Next slide. Here. We also would like to know when employees were most likely to use it. And or not unexpectedly, the overnight 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. was the least likely option to be chosen. But we specifically brought these times because these time bands, because that is when most employees are just before they start work, during their lunch hour, or after work, where their shift ends. And so, as you can see, employees would very much like it before work and after work. Next slide. We also asked if there was lockers and showers, would that be a big factor in utilizing it more or less likely? And it was more, I mean, employees were more likely to use it if it did have showers, but a significant percentage also said that really didn't have an impact on their decision. So, this going back to Ashley's point about Julie Tanani offering additional or fitness classes and having a dedicated space to offer it. We asked if these types of classes were offered more and on a more regular basis, would they be more likely or less likely to use it? And once again, overall, more, or the employees would be more likely to use it, but also a significant portion also said that that wouldn't have any impact on their decision to use it or not use it. Next slide. So we asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how valuable of a benefit the gym would be or a fitness area would be at no cost or low cost, and a very significant portion rated it an 8 or above. You're looking at roughly 71% of employees rated it an 8 or above, and the overall score was an 8 out of 10. So the employees really would like or view this as potentially a good option for them. Next slide, Ron. So next steps, and Ashley's gonna talk to this portion.
So this is where we need your feedback and to know, based on the results of this survey, if you would like us to move forward. And when I say us, I actually mean the small committee. I'm not on that committee. I'm just here helping present. So that small committee is made up of Joshua Grote, George Dahl.
Yep, and Shanna Klein in Public Works.
So it's very small at this point, but they are the ones that have done the work on the survey so far, on having the initial conversations. And so if you guys would like that to move forward, the next steps are getting a space analysis, layout and planning done, and then getting that costed so that we can understand, or the group could understand, what that looks like, and contracting with the third party. So Gil has someone that he typically uses for his space analysis. So we'll be working with that facilities group. Reviewing funding options. So there's essentially two potential options right now that I assume you guys would consider using. The first would be initially funding it from Fund 508, which is the medical fund, as related to wellness. The second option potentially could be ARP for facilities improvement, and Jeff McMorris is looking into that to see if that is something that could be utilized. The third that I didn't put on here, but you realistically could use, would be general fund dollars if you so chose. And so that initial funding would cover things like design, layout, construction, equipment purchases, initial janitorial, initial equipment maintenance. Ongoing funding, the goal would be to set up a self-sustaining account through low-cost membership and or locker fees. The committee would need to do that analysis to determine what would that need to look like and over what scope of time could there be some sort of fund that could be built. Additionally, from an operations perspective, the committee would have an official committee recognition that we could get set up for them. They'd be working with risk management for employee use agreements, working with facilities to put together janitorial and regular facility review, as well as equipment review processes. That committee would also be working to create with risk management, the employee and member access, because that would have access code. So making sure that we get the right access groups put together and get the doors keyed appropriately. And then they would also be responsible for ongoing operations. So at this point, we are looking for direction from you, the commissioners, on if this is in fact the direction that you would like the committee to continue moving. And if you have any thoughts around the funding options that could be available.
So I guess on the funding side, so Fund 508, like how much funds are actually available there? I mean, I know we initially talked about $100,000.
That's not gonna be enough.
Yeah, I think that's pretty low.
I agree.
You know, so yes, I guess that's part of the question.
So we can bring that back. We do have, so right now we're sitting at, I think it's about a 9-month fund balance last time I looked, which covers all of our medical funds. We are at a higher utilization this year. So I will say that we've definitely seen much higher utilization, and we're trending over what I budgeted for this year for our medical expenses. And so that could have an impact on future rates, depending on if we use that account or not. But it really just depends on what the rest of the year looks like in regards to account utilization, and how many large medical claims that we seem to be seeing this year. So I'm happy to provide that information to you guys. My fingers are crossed that maybe there's some ARP dollars that we could use, and I know Jeff is looking into that right now. But Mary, I do agree. I don't think 100,000 is near what we're looking at when we're looking at the renovation that would need to occur, the equipment purchase. But we haven't done that work yet, not knowing if this is a direction that you guys want the team to do better.
So to me, it seems like, you know, it's at least worth moving forward and trying to look at the space planning and see what the cost really should be, what kind of equipment we would need, you know, size and all of that.
Yeah, no, I'd support that. I couldn't tell you what it costs to outfit a gym, so I mean, I don't think we probably have anybody on staff that knows what that's gonna cost, so, but yeah, I would certainly say, yeah, go forward, see what it's gonna cost. If it comes back some astronomical number, that's probably not something we're gonna do, but if it comes back and it's falls in the budget where we think we can do, then yeah, I'd say move forward with it.
Yep, I agree. I think it's, if there's any way we could figure out, you know, how to negotiate it with our, you know, insurance, health insurance, like the, if we provide that, I wonder if there's any kind of benefit we could get.
We're self-insured, so, you know, like we're not gonna get lower rates with Primera or Kaiser on our plans to have a gym. And we're self-insured also, so we don't have, some of the same mechanisms that you have under fully insured.
Yeah, it would just seem like, gosh, it's a wellness, it's a huge wellness addition. And so it would be reducing the risk of
Hopefully,
people need
yes.
to access care.
We would hope so, and I think the goal would be if more people get fit and we see that utilization come down, right? So that's hopefully where the balance is. Is that an overnight thing? No, but the hope would be as more people do cardio or lose weight or whatever, there's comorbidities that then start to come down, right? Heart disease, diabetes, obesity. So there could be a nexus. If and where, I don't know if we could speak to that quite yet.
I was just gonna confirm what Commissioner Waldrop said. Generally with self-insurance plans, that's why you invest in wellness programs. So it does have a potential impact on your future claims because people are taking advantage of those things, utilizing them, trying to think about their body, their health, their fitness. And the idea is to trend those things down because you have wellness programs like this.
But you don't necessarily see the results for,
Maybe some time, yes.
Yeah. but I think it's worthy to continue looking at the costs and if there, you know, it may be that we have some ARPA funds that we need to allocate by the end of the year. So it would be a good use of those for future, it'd be a good future investment in our employee health.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a Monday.
Just one short thing for you this morning, commissioners. At the last meeting 2 weeks ago on Monday, we talked that we had a payment coming due from the PFD for the credit enhancement. They've reached out to us right after that meeting, asking for an extension of time to pay. Their proposal that they sent in a letter would be that they would pay at least a fourth of it this year. And they would agree to pay the remaining 3 payments over the next 3 years at 4% interest. If you so desire, that is the same interest rate on the loan that we currently have to them for the parking lot of the Value Village. Also, I just need to know from the board here if that is okay. Their board meets tomorrow to approve it if it is okay with the board.
Okay, I guess let's try to figure out why.
I think
And
what happened is they
what
have a new
uses?
CFO. They have a new CFO. He forgot to put it in the budget. To be,
And then
they forgot about
what
it.
were our uses? Because we were using it. at the
We would
fairgrounds.
use it, we can only use it for the fairgrounds. I don't know that we've specifically picked the project yet, although I know we have a number of projects to do it on. Without that money, we would have to, in essence, lend the fairground some money and pay ourselves back when this money came available.
I believe what we had in the capital plan this year was some monies going towards the campgrounds, improving the campgrounds. Part of what Aaron had briefed last week is a $250,000 grant to improve the restroom facilities, showers, that sort of stuff. And I believe they were, Doug and Aaron were both looking at what a campground enhancement could look like. I want to say we had still quote me, but $750 maybe allocated from these dollars this year to begin that work. So if we split these into 4 payments, we're talking 300 some thousand a year. It could also just mean we delay the project as well until we have enough funds coming from this credit enhancement facility to provide for it. But I think we'll have a better idea once they get some design estimates back, what the extent of the park or the campground renovations would actually entail.
So they haven't started. She talked about the grant, receiving the grant. And we approved that, but they haven't actually done any work on the engineering and the design of any of the features.
I believe at most they would be underway with the design efforts, but
Okay.
nothing
Right,
construction.
That would be in the future.
So you don't really know what that cost may come in at. They were budget constrained as well, so they're only going to be able to go so far with it.
So if they, I get you said they have a new CFO, they didn't put it in this year's budget. So if they're offering 500,000, that why can't they do 1.5 next year, next year's? budget?
And this letter that they've written, does give them the capability to do that.
Okay.
And you could go back to them and just say, we want 3/4 of it next year. With the 4% interest. Again, this came to us late 2 weeks ago. I was going to ask you. So just need to get a sense of what the commissioners want us to respond with.
I'm assuming, Randy, that their request for 4 years is due to their cash flow projections.
It could be, I didn't dive deep with Steve, when I talked to him about 2 weeks ago. Didn't dive deep as to why they needed 4 years. I know they have a project they're working on constructing right now, according to him.
Right, they're renovating the arena, you know, so I mean, we know that, but.
Do you want to run through it, bring Commissioner French up to speed where we're at in the conversation? No.
Now, this is on the credit facility from the 21 bonds that the PFD issued. We let them use our credit.
Right.
And 25% of the savings were to come to us up to $2 million. That 25% was $1.273 million. That is due this year. The PFD has requested to spread that out over time. Primarily because the new CFO didn't know about it and they did not put it in their budget.
For 4 years. They want to pay
They've
it back.
requested they've requested 25% this year, up to 25% for the next 3 years, with the ability to pay it off early if cash flow permits them to. They would pay us 4% interest, which is the same amount of interest on the loan that we have on the parking lot that we lent them money from.
And that balloons out too, at
That balloons out in
the same timeframe that this would end.
That's correct. Cause that has a big balloon payment.
Do you have a ballpark, plus or minus, of how much debt they have outstanding that we are carrying for them?
I did not, I don't have it with me right now. I can get it very easily though.
It's gotta be somewhere in the neighborhood about 40 or 50 million.
Up from,
There are 5 issues currently. 4 bond issues and then the parking lot. So I would say you're probably in that ballpark. Commissioner, that makes sense.
yeah, I guess the only problem I had with doing that over 4 years, that was not anticipated on our part. And it sets us up that we don't have the funds then to do the capital improvements that we wanted to do with those dollars. You know, and so then that delays us and makes it more expensive for us as we go out in the future. So I mean, it's kind of one of those, it's like, we got the money, he knew it was always coming to us. I don't know, and the board always knew it was coming to us. I mean, that's part of we appoint board members to also be looking out on behalf of the county. You know, that's why we have board members that we appoint to the airport board. We have board members we appoint to the PFD.
Yep.
To also be thinking about and knowing that this is happening and looking out on behalf of the county. So, I mean, that's the only problem that I don't think it's a lot of money. I don't know what their cash flow situation is, but you know, we helped out on the parking lot and it was always, I just worry it's gonna cost us more money in the end because of construction costs and all those things that when they knew this was supposed to happen.
So one thought I had is since some of this money would be going towards improvements at the fairgrounds. If they're just in the design phase this year, to look at what it would cost to improve what is the investment is in the campground. Is there a way we could say, well, I just wonder if we can come up with a different scenario, like maybe this year, but then next year we need the rest of the payment to be able to invest in whatever comes out of that design phase. I
mean,
know
that's my thought is
Yeah.
that we go with the partial payment this year
right,
and next year we need.
because we're not gonna do the improvements to the campground this year anyway, so. Just a thought.
When I assume if we really wanted to, we could force them to pay the whole thing this year. We have a contract, but so, I mean, we can certainly come up with something else. But yeah, no, I mean, I would support, you know, a quarter of it this year, but then the rest of it next year at the 4% interest rate. So that's all I need.
Yeah. I think so, because I mean, Aaron's gotta be able to plan for
Right.
that and in it over 4 years doesn't give
No.
her the ability to really do a lot,
I agree.
so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. Sparber,
Good morning.
good morning.
Let me go get my team.
Just being like this one. The appointments.
And let everyone know that they would see you arrived.
Should be more of a fanfare.
Confetti cannons.
Yeah.
when you walk into the door.
That'd be cool, wouldn't it? I have to do that sometime. How's your trip on the island?
It was fun.
Just back yesterday?
We have more people coming, Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have an extra chair down here. You need an extra chair? Here,
Is there anybody who wants over there?
Don, grab this one.
Squeeze up. Hey, here you go, Dan.
Good, there's another chair.
There's a company chair over here. Okay. And the same, if you want it.
I was trying to make it better for you down there.
There we go. Well, we're pretty excited. This is the first time I've had the whole team here together for a presentation. It's kind of a good thing for us. We've got some pretty exciting things to show you today. We have worked really hard, this team. And so why don't we start off with introductions. This is Aaron Lynn. He does all the data analysis for the jail and a pro at Jail Tracker. This guy doesn't need much of an introduction. This is Don Hooper, the director of the jail. Ken Moore is the project manager that oversaw this. And then Diane, you don't get to see Diane very often because she's kind of behind the scenes, but she's our statistician and works on putting together all of the dashboard on Power BI. So pretty excited about it and we're happy to be here. So one of the things that we are striving for in the Justice Department or the departments that I oversee is to get away from doing PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint for presentations to the board. We were looking for something that was more interactive, that was relevant, to the point, and that's why we set off on this kind of journey to do a dashboard. By far, the jail dashboard is the most complicated. It's got the most details to it and the most things that we're gonna do, but eventually the next one will be pretrial services. And then we'll move on to the other departments that I manage. So when we do presentations, you'll be able to see side by side all of the data that's coming out of the jail and all the other departments. Next on this is to work with Randy Bischoff and his team. We're gonna try to put together kind of a financial dashboard that goes along with this. So you could see the budget, and how the budget's operating real time. And then also kind of a comparison to some of our comps within the state that we're gonna be looking at as well. So it's gonna be pretty robust at the end of it, but it's gonna be a lot of work, and I just can't say enough about the team that I have and all of them working together. When we go through this, you'll see real-time information and how it impacts our capacity for the jail. So our jail is, you know, is kind of has a finite amount of beds, and there's several things that enter into the picture that can adjust that capacity one way or the other. And so Ken and I we'll kind of go through it slowly. We're gonna slow down, pause, allow you guys to ask questions, and please do, because we want to be able to make adjustments if we can early on. After the point that we adopt this dashboard, which I'm hoping to accomplish today, we're gonna look at it on a quarterly basis. So if you have recommendations or anything that goes along with it, we'll sit down. You can shoot off emails to our department. We'll sit down. We'll review them quarterly, and then we'll make updates to them. And okay, that's what I'm looking for, is operating off mine. So you'll find this very exciting. It lives on the Regional Law and Justice website. And so it's open to both the public and to us internally. And so that anyone could take a look at it and review the data as they see fit. That was another part of our goal, was to open up some transparency. We heard early on about being transparent with the numbers, getting the public wanted to understand what the numbers were. So this just really will address that part of it, and it's outward facing as well as it's inward facing. You all will have the app to this, and Ken will kind of talk you through it. Anytime you want to, you're out on your journeys, you want to do constituent brings it up and you want to talk about it, it's as simple as clicking on it, and you could give them real-time information about what's going on with it. So without further ado, Mr. Moore, I'll turn it over to you. So let's go.
Okay, Ron's got it up on the screen. I know it's probably gonna be a little small for you guys to read. Hopefully you all have a laptop, you're looking at it as well, or you have a copy. To point out on the first page here, not a lot going on, but do pay attention to the upper right corner. You'll see that it says, oh gosh, Ron, yours says 516, is that right? I'm seeing 520. So you might have to hit a refresh on yours, Ron.
But this is a
No,
static.
Oh, you've got the static.
want the link.
Oh, you have the one that we sent out for the presentation.
Yes.
If you click on my link, Ron, that'll take you to the live updated version.
Sorry, Ron, I should have pointed that out at the beginning.
So if we're doing it, would it be this one? Criminal justice data, and then
No,
view under active content?
So go to
County ideas,
County Ideas.
and then go to departments along the top and go to regional law and justice.
There we go.
Okay, 520, right, Ron?
Yeah.
Can
Okay,
you expand that? Ron?
these old eyes can't see that well. Yeah, full screen in the bottom right corner, it'll maximize that image. Bottom right on that gray bar. Yep, there you go.
Here we go. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, all I wanted to point out on this was, every day, you'll see that 520 tick ahead one day. Each morning at 6 a.m., we take a snapshot view of the jail and Geiger and the numbers. And we will populate that by 7 a.m. each morning. So you can constantly get a fresh look at this and self-serve for data needs. You'll note that it also mentions April 2024. We do have some monthly trend data in some of the slides. We try to point out the difference between the two. The last obvious full month is April of 24. So that will be updated. For instance, the May data would be resolved and would be refreshed and updated probably by, let's say, the 5th of June. A few days into the following month, we'll get the previous month loaded. So for now, this will stay April for a little bit longer. So Ron, if you want to flash ahead. Page 2.
Next page.
Yeah, and it's right in the center, bottom center, you'll see the page numbers.
You need to go back one.
Yeah, back 1 to 2. There you go. Thank you. I'll do the same. Okay, so what you're looking at here is 3 dials on the left side that are intended to give you kind of a high level view of jail population. And you'll note the top dial is overall population between the 2 facilities. And then the 2 below that are, middle is the jail and the bottom is the Geiger facility. And you can see we've kind of got this green, yellow, red indicator, right? So total population right now is 871 in that upper left corner. That is as of today, that's been refreshed. And you'll note on the outside of the dial an 823 and a 915, kind of delineating the end of the green and the end of the yellow. So 915 is essentially our usable population. At the end of the yellow in that graph, that indicates bed space that we can actually use. Not, we have more beds in some cases and locations, but usable bed space based on classification needs. So we have some limitations on when we can use beds and can't. So the 823 represents a 10% reduction, kind of a best practice for detention facilities to leave some usable space for inmate movement. So as we have an influx of inmates, maybe a bus comes in and we've got 20 heads walking in the door, we have to have space to be able to kind of move the pieces around the facility. So a 10% buffer is about appropriate and it's best practice. So 823 being kind of optimized capacity. And when we get over that, it starts getting pretty tight. If we get up to 915, we're at risk. We've got to start considering double bunking where we don't want to double bunk and things like that. So you can kind of see right now, we've been hovering around 871. We did hit a couple of peaks in the 910s, 915s in the last few months. So you'll see, this is just a good visual representation of where we're at in terms of headcount in the facilities. I also want to point out the gray. Go ahead.
So how does the red up there relate to your red lighting status at the jail?
We'll get there.
All right, well then I'll wait.
Yeah, and there is no relation to the red light indicator you see in the middle of the graph compared to the red on the dials. And I'll get there in just a minute.
All right.
I do want to point out in the bottom left, you see the gray area. We do have unused floors over at Geiger, and everybody knows we've got some challenges in terms of resourcing. So we've got some closed pods over there. So that indicates, an area that we really can't get into because we don't have the officers to man those positions.
Along with the appropriate inmates to be housed out at Geiger. So if you look at the red dial, I'll just point out a couple of things here. In the yellow, 915 is the usable capacity that's directly correlated to that center black box that says 130 out the room. That number is not a static number. It fluctuates all the time. It includes your mental health folks. It includes your gang members. It includes your house alone. Anybody that just requires a single cell by themselves. That directly impacts the amount of percentage of beds that Dawn has to operate, within that yellow zone, if that makes sense. And so at 915, which is all the usable beds downtown, we have to send everybody else out to Geiger. So that is the capacity of the downtown jail. So we're relying on that bottom box, which is 192. That's the usable space that we have out of Geiger with the appropriate inmates to go out there. So yes, it ties in a little bit to the staffing, but those staff are better utilized downtown because we're not seeing the amount of folks, and you'll see in the remaining graphs, we're not seeing the amount of folks going out to Geiger that we used to see. So hope that kind of clears up one point. So go ahead, I'll let you go ahead with it, Ken.
Okay. You see the red arrows going up and down on the screen there, the 23, the 60, the 16. That's just a visual indicator to show you that, compared to the previous month, we're up 23 for total pop. Compared to the last year, we're up 60 for 2023 to now. So you can kind of see these trends later in the week as our population drops, because on Mondays, we typically see peaks. You might see a few of these tick into the green. things will change. So, you know, this is just again, a quick reference for you to understand where we were at versus last month, where we were at versus last year.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask on that because like seeing what it was on the 16th versus here.
Yep.
Like it was a negative 16. For the total population versus last month. So is that on, so we're doing this on a daily basis? So
So,
that's for the day, not,
so that would have been a comparison, that would have been the 16th count versus the average for last month. That's what that represents.
versus the average.
Yeah, for the last month, yeah. Total pop versus last month. That makes sense?
Yeah, we may just wanna have like a little asterisk to define that because otherwise it's confusing when you're looking from day to day and it's, like I said, to see that. That on the 16th, it was down 16 and now it's up 23. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what is that really telling me?
And you were in the middle of last week, your population numbers, classification starts, you know, and the court's processing starts, your population starts to tail off. By the end of the week, they want to clear bed space so that the weekend when we get an influx. So you will see as the week goes on that those numbers tick to the green usually. And
Okay,
then back on Monday again, you'll be back in the red usually.
Monday, Tuesday, yeah.
Just to clarify, because so on the one where it says total population versus last month, that's last month's average, not, this isn't comparing the 20th of this month to last month on the 20th. It's
Exactly.
the average for, and same with the year,
Correct.
the average for the year, not the
23.
same date last year. Okay. Okay,
Go ahead.
I think an asterisk would be good.
Okay, we can add something to clarify that.
Can you, Diane, you can add it all.
Yeah, no, so the last year is last year's same month, so if this is May, then it's comparing May 2023.
Thank you. Good clarification. Well, we'll keep moving here.
Yeah, something, cause I just, when I saw total population versus last year, I assumed. Like the average of last year, but you're saying it's the month of, okay, so we need, we need.
the first one's the month, the last
This
month,
one-
and then it's the second column.
So
is
it's
the
versus
last year.
April
Well, no,
2024
she
and
says
May
it's the month of
2020.
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Diane just said,
Not
so.
all of
I think
last
for the
year.
first column.
First column is versus April 2024, the second one is compared to May 2023.
It's just,
Oh.
when it says last year, it's just that month last year,
Okay,
not
Yeah, so
all
we
12
need
months.
to
It's-
further
Footnote
clarify
that for
that.
you.
Yeah.
Back.
And the reason is
Yeah.
we try to track those trends, Commissioner, so that we know where the pulse is. Like, we know June typically has more than, you know, so it's just a way of us kind of monitoring those month to month versus last year.
You could just say total population versus same month last year or something like that, cause, or else I was thinking, oh, wow, for the whole year. It's, but that's not true, okay.
No.
So what if we did, if we showed so last month, so April 2024, what the average daily population was, and then the up and down arrow that is comparing with the difference,
That'd be good.
and the same thing, so 2023 ADP was, and give the number, and then the up down arrow, so that makes it a little clearer to what we're
Or
comparing
the
it
trend,
to.
cause we really just care about the trend, right?
Okay, we'll take a look at
Yeah,
that.
let's take a footnote on that one.
All right, so let's talk about the 95.4 and the 19.2. This may generate some conversation as well, but how I look at this at least, and guys, keep me honest here if I misstate. But your 95.4 represents those individuals in custody. Their average length of stay as of today is 95.4. The 19.2 takes into account those that have been released. And you have to factor in that we've got book and releases that push that trend down. So it's a much different number when you're counting in the book and release individuals, which you don't see in the 95.4 because those are just those individuals in custody.
So when you talk one point, and maybe I'll get it, okay? So on the average length of stay, you guys recall that when we did the look at Measure 1 and some of the other ones, they use the average length of stay. That's time to release, okay? The other one, the 95.4, is how long they're staying until disposition of their cases, if that makes sense. So it's taken about 95.4 for them to get out of our jail due to disposition of some cases. The average point of time, when you include all of the population, those are staying for 1 and 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, and that comes out to 19.2. When we looked at measure 1, we had used a average length of stay of 17 days. And then if I remember, the JFA was around the same 17 or 16 days length of stay. So that impacts your overall count when you're looking at this, because when you're figuring out, we operate on peaks. We don't operate on the valleys. We operate on the peaks because we have to have that amount of space at any given time. Is that kind of address what you were gonna ask, Mr. French?
No,
No, probably not. Not even close.
So on the average in custody length of stay, is that by month or by year?
It's everybody that's still in custody right now.
Days, and it's 95 days.
And that number fluctuates too. What was it on the other one?
It was 96.8.
Yeah, it fluctuates as well.
I think something that might help, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think something that might help is when you have somebody that's been in custody for say 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,500 days. That's gonna drive your average in custody length of stay up. When that person is released from custody, that number is gonna go down and your average release length of stay is going to go up.
So it would be helpful, I think, if it said average daily in custody. If it's actually that day, because there's no definition of time. And so you don't know, is it annual, is it monthly, if it's, or daily? And if you're saying it's daily, then put daily up there. It would help in terms of contextualizing that.
Can I ask just for my clarity, so the 95.4, so it's essentially that population, those are of individuals that are not, that they don't bond out, they're not released on their own record. Those are the individuals that are arrested and remain in jail until their case is adjudicated. That's how long those people are in that. But that's the population you're looking at, the people that are in jail from arrest to the end of their court date and don't bond out, aren't released on their own recognizance, anything like that. That's that population that number represents. Okay.
And it's kind of the serious violent crimes.
Right. Yes, so you can just look at
Which-
that from
which
time
was-
to resolution is a good way to look at, but
It really-
yeah.
It really doesn't matter what their crime type is. They are in custody right now. We take everybody that's in custody. We take the number of days they've been in custody and divide that so that you end up with your average number of days in custody for the people that are sitting in jail right now.
Okay, I get it. Then
You have some people that have been there a really long time.
Longer.
And you might have somebody that's only been here a day and they might get out tomorrow.
They're included in that number.
They're all included in that. If they're in the jail, they're included in that coverage.
Yep.
But
got
if the jail is in red light status, they're not in jail, so they're not included in this number because they're not in custody.
Yeah, anybody that's not in custody,
Not-
not included in that
yeah.
calculation.
So we could be at red light status, have 100 people out, but that wouldn't be reflected here.
Right, that's why on red light status, sometimes we have to wait for releases in
Yeah.
order to bring them in the
Right.
door. That's a good point.
Think about the snapshot. These are everyone in the jail today. Everyone is in there, all 871. That's their average length of stay.
It's like I said, by far, this is the most complicated dashboard that we have to build.
Yeah, no, I understand the complications.
So Mike had already touched on the 130 number, which again is our house alone count. We've got individuals that just require that they be, for security reasons, house alone, gang members. The entire 6th floor, which is our max security group, mental health. Potentially could have been a fight yesterday. We have to separate individuals, things like that. So it's a rather large number and it makes classification and housing complex.
Yeah, it just artificially limits our population for, there is 2 beds, but we have to, use it for 1. So nobody recommends putting super max in 60s.
Getting into the red light status, so 6 instances over the last 30 days which amounted to 13 hours. Total lockdown, nobody's coming into the facility. Law enforcement vehicles are parked outside the Sally Port waiting to come in the door for a total of 13 hours. I think if you were to look at the version you guys received, the hard copy on the 16th, it was closer to 8 instances in 15 hours, so it ebbs and flows. On the right side,
60
sorry.
seconds, so I'm gonna
Yep.
say on that. So then when we get from law enforcement saying, oh, we sat there for hours, you're saying over the last 30 days was a total of 15 hours?
Oh, 13 hours.
Over the
Or,
last 30 days,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
13 up there, I'm 15 up on my screen.
Yeah.
So
One of the things I see, Commissioner, is that, so if it gets backed up, even like 6 different instances, each one's an average of 2 hours or whatever that is. 2 hours backs it up. And so by the time that 2 hours clears, whatever the issue is, either from population, emergency inside the jail causes it sometimes, like I said, the population, staffing shortages cause it sometimes, hospital visit, lots of different things. But if it goes on red light for 2 hours, it might take, it gets backed up and each intake takes about 30 minutes. And so it could get backed up. The officer in the back, he might be out on the, outside that west door for 4 or 5 or, so I think that's why the officers, we meet with law enforcement quarterly and that's, their feeling is it's much longer than it is, but it does keep their officer on a lot. It's keeping their officer off the street a lot longer than this. Does that make sense?
no, that helps. So we're tracking how long we're internally on
Sure.
red light status, which has a different effect on the
Last one in line is still, yeah, he might be, or the officer might be another 2 or 3 hours out. If there, sometimes there's 6 cars out there, you know.
Yeah.
A 2-hour delay in booking area causes a big delay, yeah. Because we still only do 1 intake at a time, or we do 2, but there's only 1 nurse, there's.
Okay, now that's helpful to understand the difference.
And I'll say, I don't, this is kind of anecdotal, but in looking through the dashboards and working with them, with Aaron and Diane and Mike, maybe a month and a half ago, the total hours was something closer to like 20, 25. So it does seem to be trending down a little bit.
Okay.
Why that is, I don't know. Don's just doing a heck of a
This is
job.
really low now, even when I said that,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's really low. Last quarterly meeting, I think it was around 30 hours. It ebbs and flows. Yep. And I wish I could predict it. Same thing, a big critical incident that can delay things sometimes 6 hours or something. We just close things down. So, door, we had power, we had waters, you know, all those issues sometimes can cause real big delays too. Really long, lengthy delays.
And we don't know how many they're citing and releasing out in the field. That's another number to track, you know, so
Right.
there, a lot of that could be occurring before they even get to.
Right, because that's what I've heard too, is that once they know they're on red light status, they're like, oh, okay, is this guy really worth taking down and booking, or do we just write a citation and let it go?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wrap up this slide with the stuff on the right, which is just a breakdown of the different pods in each facility. So you'll see the jail is that larger grouping on the upper end of that, and the Geiger facility and its 2 floors. And it just gives you a sense for where each pod is in terms of its usable bed capacity. Are we a little over? Are we a little under? For instance, 2 West at 82, when it's really set up for 70, we're 12 over. So we're pretty tight in 2 West right now. So if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the next slide.
This one might be a little more complicated, but
It's kind of a fun slide, though.
it's a fun slide.
More complicated.
Well, you guys, it took a long time to put this thing together. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so in the upper left, you can see a breakdown by highest charge of the population. And Ron, if you wouldn't mind, if you could hover over maybe the FA bar, and everybody can get a sense for, and later on, when you guys are playing around with this, it'll make more sense, but you hover over that, you can see that you've got 161 felony A's in the facility, 292 felony B's on down the line. So the cool thing about Power BI, the tool that's behind this, is that there's interrelationships with the data, and we can click on different cells. And Ron, if you would please, maybe just click on the FA bar, the first one, and watch what it does to the other graphs. So And just so everybody's clear, because it took us a minute to figure this out too. This is called a slicer. It's essentially a filter on the data by just FA. When you clicked on that, now you're just seeing the details on FA. And it relates to all the other graphs on the slide. Obviously, they've all changed. So you can hover over any of those now and you can see what the original number was. And Ron, for instance, under population by warrant type in the center there, you could hit that blue and just hover over that. And you can see originally it was 140. Now you can see the new number underneath that. Ron, I can't read it. I apologize, but five. Okay, so 5 FAs were FTA only. Okay.
No, hold on. I think Ron's got the diminished blue. He's not looking at the highlighted. The little guy.
All right, let me do it myself.
Little
here.
guy there.
So if I click on FA, the bar, and I go over to warrant type FTA, I can see originally it was 140, but there's 5 FTAs that are felony A's. So you just get to see the data sliced down deeper. It's kind of fun to do that. And along the bottom, you can see it broken out by the court involved. So you got Superior Court, District Court, other courts, multiple courts, community court. In the middle on the bottom, you see the arresting agency involved. So City of Spokane had 103 of those. And over on the right, you can see who was billed for. Typically, the county is billed for a lot of this. So, and then you can unclick on the FA bar, Ron, on the upper left, and it just resets everything. So
You click on the Superior Court, Ron. Down left-hand corner. It kind of gives you an understanding of what Superior's got. And then you notice that the billing agency on the right goes way up because it's predominantly the county.
Yeah.
If you were to click on the municipal one, Ron. To the right, Ron, the little box.
yeah, the light blue one.
That says multiple.
Yeah, go to the right.
Multiple, yeah, municipal.
There you go.
Then you get an idea, you could see their charges are gross misdemeanors and misdemeanors. You see what I'm saying? If you go down to the bottom and you hit the district court, same story. So that just is interacting. It could tell you up in these small boxes what you're looking at. So it's more than just a bar chart. It's interactive to the point that you can see the actual charges in it. So pretty cool stuff, Diane.
Yes. Just some other notable things, legal status in the upper right, Ron, you see we've got pretrial, hold and sentence. I think our sentence comes out to about 75%. I apologize. That's pretrial population is 75%. So
A way on that to show the people that are, I mean, I guess it's kind of like who's in jail and arresting and all of that, but to show how many are under public defense versus not.
How many are under public defense?
I mean,
As
using
far as
public defense,
over a private attorney?
because we're paying for the public defense, so it'd be good for us to know
That's a good point.
what, and they should have
I don't know
to
how we
tell
do
you.
it.
is that tracked?
I'm looking at these two right here, they're going, I don't know. I don't know.
Likely not the jail population data. That would be, have to be some sort of cross.
I think when
That's
they
pulled
do,
from the public defender's office, yeah.
when we do the dashboard for the public defender's office, I think that'll be really fair. So we're gonna, each of them will have a dashboard that we're working on at that point. So,
I mean, just as we're putting at the county levels across the state, we're putting so much emphasis on public defense and the cost of it, and as we look at what is gonna happen. That would be an interesting dashboard to really see, which I would think we'd have to know at the pretrial, because they would have to identify if they're being their own attorney, if they're hiring an attorney, or if we're using the public defense to provide that.
yeah, how many are monitored, that'll be, pretrials are next, so.
It's a high majority. I mean, just my feeling, I don't have the data to back it up, but there's only just a handful of pro se inmates at any one time because they're afforded more law library time and things. Between counsel for defense and the public defender's office, I would say it's 95% of it. There's not, I mean, you see the private attorneys in the lobby. There's just not that many private attorneys that we have that are visiting their clients. I don't have data to back that up. but it's predominantly public defenders and counsel for defense.
I would
Which would
say
just be an interesting correlation to show that most people that are in jail are using public defense.
Sure.
I would say that's pretty accurate.
So unless there's any other questions, maybe we'll go to slide 4. This is just a brief slide, a little bit of demographic information if you're interested in male, female breakdown, age group breakdown, or race and ethnicity.
Yeah, so on this slide right here, a couple key points. One, we really wanted to have the race and ethnicity on there because of our work with the SRLJC. So this is gonna become pretty important for some of the work that we're doing with those folks. And then of note on the center one by age, this was one of the things that had come up during measure 1 is that some of the other studies had only done a certain amount from 19 to like 44 for the age used for the demographic. But if you look at the 45 years old and over, there's 199 of those. You know, so I think it's important when we're doing our jail analysis to include the whole population and the whole age range rather than trying to siphon off some and just use one particular amount for that part of it.
I remember that a couple of years ago when we met out at the resource center, Spokane, where they went through the numbers and the organization that was brought in to sort of do that analysis, essentially their data was crime only happens, between ages 18 and 44. Like nobody commits crime unless you're in between those ages, which this shows that that's not true.
That's not accurate. That's why I think it's important. And I think this is the only reason I bring it up is because when we were compiling the numbers for measure 1, this had come up on a couple of occasions. And I just really wanted to show you that you have to take a more holistic look at it when we're looking at the jail population, a broader range.
Well, I think that when you add it up though, I think the idea is when you're projecting out like future, you're looking at demographics of the community. I mean, it's still. I wasn't at that conversation, but what I understand is that you want to look at the propensity for somebody to potentially be involved in crime and incarcerated, and it still is 650 to 200. So it's like 3 times more likely that you'd be 18 to 45. So I mean, I think that's the idea. You don't totally say that no one ever will be in the jail, but when you're doing your planning, you're looking at how your growth is occurring. If your population is getting older on average, you want to take that into account for your planning.
And, I would think that if they're gonna do that, and I understand why they did the methodology behind it. I would think that you would want that number instead of almost 200 to be closer to like 10 or 15. Because when you're projecting out, it's clear that, and I don't know, we could go back and look at that age range, but I would be willing to bet that age range has been there for a long time. And that amount of people. So. And I get what you're saying, though.
No,
You try to project it out, and what's more than likely gonna be the ring, but I think this shows true that we probably, as the county, we should probably take a more holistic look at all of the population on it, so. Any other questions before we?
And Ron, if you would please, I want to point out to folks, if you see these dots in Power BI, you can actually click like the male dot, Ron, if you want to click on that again, you get a filter, you get a slicer of the other data. So if you click that. There you go.
I see.
There you go. Yeah. And then you could go hover over your 25 to 34 age group and you can see that 280 males that age. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong number. 237 out of the 280, fall into that age group.
Into the male category.
Yep. So as you see those dots throughout the different pages, feel free to click on them and you can kind of get a deeper dive on them.
Yeah, it's super interactive, so when you're looking through this data, you can check it.
Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide, Ron, which is
Highest charges.
top charges by charge level. So you can see each of these groupings. One of them is felony A, felony B, felony C. You got GMs or gross misdemeanors, and you got misdemeanors. And you've got some slicers on the left side as well as a reset to default button there. But what we did is to take the top charges and kind of group them together so you can get a sense for where the most volume is coming from. So in this case right now, you've got all arresting agencies, all billing agencies. You see 44 murders, 33 robberies, 21 assaults, and this is under FA. Under FB, you got 95 burglaries. And if you were to click on, say, Spokane City under arresting agency, Ron?
To the left, yep.
Yeah, on the left side, Spokane City, you can see the cut of those that come from Spokane City. And you can play around with this and kind of see those top charges by groups. And again, there's thousands of these different charge types out there. Again, we're just showing you the top by volume in our facility. So it gives you a sense for what's going on.
And then the bottom left box shows you who's paying the bill for those.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep, by billing agency versus by arresting agency. Questions? Go ahead.
It's like I know you guys get those questions from your constituents, but who's in our jail? What's the population? Are we just keeping traffic violators? Are we just doing this or doing that? This gives you a way to show them and say, no, this is what we've got in our jail right now. And then you can click down on top of it. Some of the other graphs we get more, it gets more visual than this. This is just kind of drilling it down to actually get the percentages of our population that are in the jail. Questions?
Oh, Commissioner, are some of these automatic, are some of these charges just automatic that you're held?
No bond.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it would be interesting, you could like highlight those, like those are the charges that have to be in the jail. Right?
Well, the judge gets to make a
Oh,
decision. They
that's
set
true.
bond. And so the bond.
There's
None of
nothing.
these categorizations, they don't break it down far enough.
Oh, okay,
You would have to break it down much farther than.
there's
what
like
we have.
subcategories.
And-
Yeah, okay.
And
I was just thinking that would be interesting to
Hey,
see.
Commissioner, it's like, when you look at, like, let's just look at assault, there's probably 15, 20 trillion
True,
assault to
true.
go along with it, that
And some of them by statute
Right.
are,
Same with murder,
DUIs even, a lot of this, yeah.
most of which are not mandatory.
so it's still all
It's
judge
Still
discretion.
judicial discretion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super in the weeds when you get down to that point, but. Okay,
Is good?
everybody's good so far?
Hey, Ron, let's go to the next one. So worth noting now, we're moving into kind of monthly snapshot data. So this, you'll see in the upper right corner, it says April 2024. So this is, we're trying to give you a little bit of trend data over time, going back to January of 21. So you can get a sense for, in the upper left corner, it's ADP by location. You can see the lighter blue line climbing, something around 600, let's say, into the high 600s probably. Geiger below that also climbing. We're maxing out Geiger with as many people as we can stuff in there. Given that the facility only supports lower level offenders, so some challenges with that. In the bottom left, you can see monthly ADP by billing agency. And again, this is just another look at another data point earlier in the presentation. On slide 3, we'd given you monthly ADP by billing agency, but this is the trend view of that. We wanted you to have kind of both looks. So you can see it broken out by different agencies. And again, Ron, if you wouldn't mind, you could click on the Spokane City light blue dot in the bottom left graphic, and it just highlights the line a little better for you. So you kind of follow along, and then you can drag your cursor over it at any one of those points in time, and you can see what those counts were for the different months. In the upper right, and I think Ron, you gotta probably unclick. There you go. Yeah, in the upper right, you've got ADP by highest charge, which again, this is trend information, but you can see the FB, the very top line on that one, climbing pretty significantly since January of 21. So some challenges with our felony growth at the jail. The other ones are relatively flat. I'll say FAs are coming up a little bit. Just visually, I'm trying to see FCs as well. So all of them climbing, but the felony Bs being kind of the highest growth rate. Then in the bottom right, you've got monthly in custody length of stay by highest charge. So again, back to that earlier data point on slide 2, we were talking about for those individuals in the facility, these are their lengths of stay. So Ron, if you wanted to hover over something in that bottom right box,
Go to the far right,
you could see there you
just
go.
that point.
The pop-ups will give you the kind of rough length of stay by charge. So FAs being 249 on average, FBs being 95, FCs being 72, etc. A little bit of trend data monthly. Questions? Good, okay.
So, okay, so I'm gonna just, how does this length of stay relate back to our first slide? Because somebody look at this and he's hovering over, I mean, some of these are. I mean, some are really long, which obviously makes sense,
By the average column.
but then the others.
Dan, you want to explain that?
Well, so you're on slide 2, and I know you're not looking at it up here, but you'll recall the 95.4 number. So again, that's for the individuals in the facility and their length of stay. This is just that same number broken out by their charge type. So
For felony A's, they're averaging 245 days, which is longer than the state caseload standards.
Yeah.
Those are important to us that we want to look at in some of those, and that, some of this speaks to the backlog. You know,
Well, it's just interesting that the misdemeanors are 27 days.
we've only got 2 or 3, but yeah,
Okay.
it is a little odd. It seems long.
Sentence.
Sentence misdemeanors, there you go.
Okay,
Oh, so this is a combination of the,
Of all legal statuses, yeah.
Yeah.
So pretrial, hold.
but I see what you're saying, if the average is 95. These all look higher than 95,
Yeah.
like every single one. Not every, but a lot of
Well,
them.
remember your felony Bs were your highest population amount. Remember the chart going up and down, the vertical graph. You've got 93 days on average with your largest charge group. So it is pretty close to the 95.4.
Only one's above 95, that's the 245. But if you add all those numbers together, you divide by 6, it's probably 95.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just
but
looking at
there's a
the
lot of
chart.
people that I
but the
thought
chart
just came in
Is that the
and got
hybrid on the left?
released. So they may be on
I'm
per day.
confused.
Yeah, well, that's coming next. That's next.
I'm looking at this chart right here,
Okay,
right? In this chart, but everything's above 100 or 200 or 300. What am I missing? Sorry,
How much graph?
on both the graphs.
So,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
well, it's 2 different charts, not to be compared, but your monthly ADP by highest charge in the upper right. You're looking at, for instance,
Count of inmates versus number of days in custody.
correct,
So your top one is your
Oh.
count of inmates.
ADP, average daily.
So what is
population.
the left axis numbers?
How many?
Number of inmates.
Oh, I thought that was the days of stay. Sorry,
Yeah. no,
I can't.
On the bottom right one it is.
The one
Okay.
below that is the.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, commissioners, it's gonna take us some time. We gotta navigate through these things.
Yeah.
If you have questions, all you gotta do is email us and we'll address them.
It's a lot to take in, and
It
and
is.
we even fumble with it a little bit as we're.
There's a
Yeah, I
lot
don't
to it.
find, it's confusing, I think, because I'm thinking you mean number of months on the left axis, but you're saying number of inmates.
Right. It's by
So-
count.
Okay. The title of the slide, though, is monthly. But that's the number of inmates on the left. Okay.
And
Alright.
they're monthly snapshots over time that each data point is. So what was your daily population on for each month, right? And what was your average length of stay for each month?
And I don't believe that Power BI allows us to insert a note next to the y-axis that would allow us to explain it. You might be able to-
we can put a title of the access, just to make
It would be a text box that you just float in there.
or like that, yeah.
Okay, we might be able to add something in there to add a little bit. Okay, and again, we don't have to do it, but with the dots, for instance, on the monthly ADP by highest charge in the upper right, you could click on the orange FC dot and it just highlights it a little more clear for you on the graph. All right, moving on to slide 7. 15 minutes, I think. Okay, another couple views here. This is book and release information.
So Commissioner, CUNY, this is what you were asking about.
Yeah.
So the top box right there are the ones that are being booked in and they go right out of jail.
The orange line, yeah.
Yeah.
The orange line on the top is the book and release, which latest month book and release is 12.7. You'll recall when we were doing the measure 1 effort last year, I think we were averaging about 14. Your 2023 book and release percent is 14.91. So we're trending down a little bit. But if you were to just put your cursor on the last, I guess that would be the April data point on that top graph, and then slide it to the left 1 month. I think March we're back to 14.5. So a little ebb and flow, but we're down a little bit, but just for the 1 month. I mean, there's dips and dives, but we're hovering right around 14%.
And again, this is impacted by the site release in the field. So if they know that they're not gonna stay in jail anyway, and they're gonna book them in and out, they're more likely gonna cite them in the field. These are the ones that are actually make it to the jail that we book in and out.
The bottom graphic is just, again, it's a trend representation of a data point we had on slide 3. So if you're interested in looking back on that, but again, you can see the city admissions kind of creeping up since 2021. You can see the county admissions probably diving a little bit and then coming back up, and everything else is relatively flat, I would say. Questions on this?
This was pretty self-explanatory, so it's got some
Yep.
data points on it.
Okay, Ron, if you want to go to 8, this is our final slide. Mike can help me out with this, but I'll open up with just kind of explaining the layout here. You'll see a red line going across the middle. That's your downtown jail usable capacity of 717. Anytime we bump up against that, we're having challenges. And you can see the orange and blue lines bouncing over that consistently since, beginning of 22. And now we're beyond that in 23 and climbing over the top of it. Now, the green line above, the horizontal green line represents both facilities for a 915 usable capacity. So the way to read this is, in real high level terms, the bottom blue line is your felony. Check my notes here. Your bottom blue line is your felony. So technically, if we were a felony only facility, detention services, it would take us until, I don't know, that's probably like March of 26, May of 26 to cross over that red line. But we're not a felony only facility, right? We've got gross misdemeanors, we've got misdemeanors, we've got holds. So coming up, you'll see the darker blue line that represents your gross misdemeanors. And with just felonies and gross misdemeanors, we've been bouncing over our jail capacity number as of 23 and even into 22. You add in the orange line, which is your misdemeanors. And, it's a slight bump. As of right now, I think we have 3 misdemeanors in the facilities. But when you add in the holds, you can see it really does some damage because we start bouncing up against our 915 threshold, which utilizes the Geiger facility. So we have some real challenges there, and you can see where the purple line kind of takes off. It's giving you that historical trend after March or April. But, we're definitely bumping up against our limit with, I think over the past 3 months, we've touched on 910 total population, 915, 3 or 4 times. And again, as Mike had pointed out, we manage the facility based on peaks. That's our concerns, right? Mondays are a terrible day because we're constantly loaded up with bodies and waiting for the courts to catch up and process those individuals. So this graph is intended to kind of show you where we hit these peaks and our challenges with our max usable capacity at 915 and 717. like.
Yeah, so if you look at it too, so everything above the red line is Geiger capacity. So everything above that red line has to qualify to go to Geiger. So that would be my first qualifier right there. In order for us to manage our population, that would have to be eligible to go out to Geiger. And if you look as far back as 2022, you see that little peak at 2022. We were bumping up at the margin right there on eligible or eligible space out at Geiger. So when you look at it with the holds, we've been relying on Geiger for a long time. I mean, you can look at the top peak right there. We've been relying on that capacity for a long time. When you look at the next line, which is the orange line, again, we're relying on the capacity out at Geiger to meet that need. You go down to the gross misdemeanors, the same. What's important for you to realize on this slide right here is as early as 2024 and probably to 2025, we're going to start reaching our capacity where everything that we have has to be eligible to go to Geiger. And that's a spot that's going to be really challenging for us. One of the things that we're going to have to do in that is to go back and do contract reviews. We're going to have to free up some space in order to handle what we're statutorily required to do, which is handle the felons and gross misdemeanors out of district court. So everything else and all the other contracts that we have would come under that. That includes U.S. Marshal, the DOC, contracting agencies, which includes the city, the valley, Medical Link, and all those other ones, would have to come under review to free up bed space for us to keep enough space for our statutory requirements. And those are decisions that I know are challenging decisions. But what I'm telling you is that probably by the middle of this year, we need to be having those conversations. If you look at the top lines right there, and just in 2025, we're narrowing that slice down considerable. So we're looking at a net capacity of under 83 beds. That's what we have in the capacity that we have for out of Geiger. So this slide right here is really, really telling of what our future looks like for us. And it's going to be narrowed capacity. We're going to have to review the contracts to make sure that we have enough space to handle what we're obligated to handle. So questions on that?
I just want to make a comment. If you go, Ron, if you go all the way back to the left, the far most left axis and just hover over the data point, look at felonies, 442. That was April of 2020. That's how many felons were in our jail. Now go out to April, or the farthest data point to the right, where we actually have data, not trend data. Go to April of 24. 617.
Staggering.
40% increase during that time frame of felons that are in our jail. So that's putting pressure on our ability for holding other non-felons in there, because we're just frankly running out of space. As our felon population continues to grow, we have less and less ability to hold others.
Can you go back? Show me that first one. Compare the gross misdemeanor. So you got 165 compared to 49. So drug use was moved from a felony down to gross misdemeanor during that time period, correct? The state changed most drug charges to the gross misdemeanor. So that's moving. Probably a large portion of that 442 is now considered a gross misdemeanor. So you've gone, I mean, so you can't even say like, oh, well, the classifications change. I mean, it's just an increase regardless. Like there's no way to talk it. There is a clear increase because because the gross misdemeanors are things that used to be a felony. So things that are remaining felonies have gone up on their own. So, I mean, there's no way to put a positive spin on those numbers.
I would say too, that on those drug charges, if they're just for that drug charge for gross misdemeanor, they'll likely fall under 14% on their, that's their only offense. Otherwise, if they have a trailing offense, which the majority of them do, then they would fall into the population that you're talking about.
And I know it's been an increase even, but is there a way to go back a couple, because I know that bunch of folks were released in 2020, right? During the start of the pandemic. Would it be valuable to go back to pre-pandemic just to see what the trend line is?
Oh, yeah, we have.
I mean, obviously, this was really a low start, so it's not really apples to apples, although I'm sure that has been an increase because,
It's a return to normal.
okay,
It's.
that's what I
Right.
trying to get at.
I believe it's still trending up. We can go back and take a look at that data and I think.
Right, it
some-
could still be a little trending up, but I think we need to put it in context of, this is when the jail was semi-empty because of the concerns about folks being in close contact, right?
Yeah, and I hope to God we don't have another pandemic, to go through that, but that's kind of, if you look at
Certainly
the,
hope not.
yeah, me too, you know what I'm saying? But if you look at that period, I almost want to say it's more artificial than the normal that he's talking about, but we definitely could go back. And take a look.
Well, I just think it'd be good to see where we are pre-pandemic and how much we're trending up or not.
Can we just do that by, instead of changing this? Okay.
I mean, this was part of our measure
Can we
one effort.
send you the slide for it, rather talk about the slide portion of it? Instead of have these guys do a lot of work to this to show.
Yeah, you don't have to do it.
No, yeah, I just
No,
think it's
we've got
important to show that, because you don't wanna go out like forever, it's a lot of data that may or may not be relevant. But
Well, for
that first data point is kind of a tricky one, is my point
So
for
what do you have?
people to
I mean,
understand.
we're probably at like 128 in August of 18 for felony A's.
Can you turn that around? If you look, that's what I'm saying about normal versus artificial. Look pre-COVID at the bar graph and where it was trending, then COVID drops off. So it's kind of a return to normal. You know
Right,
what I'm saying?
And went past.
I just think it's important are we returning to normal or are we seeing an actual increase? Those are two different things.
I think you're right.
Seems like it's about, go ahead, Commissioner French.
To be able to fully use Geiger, how many more detention officers do you need to be able to open up Geiger to its full capacity?
So it's not, Commissioner, we could send the officers out there now. It's having qualified inmates to go out to Geiger.
Got it.
It's gone.
So even if you had the corrections officers, you don't have the right classification of inmates to go out there. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner, it's gone back and forth even the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It was restricted by staffing, but now it's eligible inmates. We've recently sent 4 new officers out to Geiger. It wasn't new officers, we opened it up so some senior officers could go out, but we put 4 new officers out there. And it really, it didn't open up any beds. The only thing we have that's downtown at any one time that could move out to Geiger is around 20 females is our number that bounced back.
Okay.
But it's just not, it would take 4 officers to open up a floor, which really has a capacity of 80. So it's not a very good use of the 4 officers overall.
Yeah.
That's the only ones that are out of Geiger that are eligible for Geiger right now, but it has gone back and forth. That's some of the confusion, I think, is that at one time it was restricted by available officers, but right now it's not.
Okay, thank you.
They are related, I mean, certainly, so let's
Yeah.
just be real direct with it, it's if we had more officers. If we were fully staffed, for example, I think we have 362 beds out of Geiger with all that, with all the space we have.
Sure.
So if we had 30 more COs, if we were fully staffed, we could utilize 302. But the eligible population is not there to be able to go out there. So they're connected to each other, but right now, what's driving our Geiger utilization is the eligible population, not the availability of COs.
It's kind of like what Josh was saying, it's the fact that the felonies are continuing to go up and criminal misdemeanors are continuing to go up. In spite of the changes that drug laws and their classifications.
And I know it's been discussed here too, but we approached the marshals about a year ago in contract negotiations, if they would allow us to move some of their inmates out to Geiger. We artificially classify all of them as a medium, and they inspected the facility and said it didn't meet their requirements, so they didn't allow us to move any of their contract beds, any of the marshals out there. So, we believed, and I haven't looked at that number for a period of time because they didn't allow us to put them out there. We believe there was 30 or 40 US Marshals based on their original charge, but we hold them all in a US Marshal, so they're classified up as a medium. So, I don't know if that, but it would have allowed us to open up some bed space, but
Yeah, like a third of a floor to watch the US Marshals out there. Again, you got to fully staff it. So it's.
it was around 40 last time we looked. I haven't looked recently, but it was around 40.
Any other questions? I know it was a lot to take in, but like I said, I'm so proud of the work they've done.
Yeah, you guys have done a great
It's
job.
phenomenal.
Can't wait to start. Look at,
Would any of this been possible before legalizing marijuana? Because it just seems like there's such stuff going on here.
There is a glossary term on the
Colors and
on the
everything.
last slide. If you're interested in all the terms, they put together all the glossary form on the back side of it on the last page. And it's gonna go live. We're gonna have it live and we're gonna send them the link.
We'll get you a link, yeah, and that'll happen pretty quickly here, so you guys let us know if you like what you see.
And all the functionality that we saw, this will be available to the public. It's not a pared down for.
It is housed on the County Ideas SharePoint site.
Okay,
We could probably put it out on the extranet too, if we would like to. None of this stuff is sensitive. It's a lot of it is duplicate of what we have today on the Regional Law and Justice dashboard. That's an external site, so we're happy to put it out there. I think we can do that.
I think it's transparent. I think we should.
I don't see a
It's
problem
not,
with
there's
it.
not personal data in here, simply just numbers, percentages, numbers, charges.
I think it's important to get this out there and let folks see what the truth is here, because there's unfortunately a lot of people out there that are spreading a false narrative about the numbers and say, well, we've got the receipts, so here you go.
We've, and the team has done a great job. We've had a number of planning sessions. We're looking back through it, doing the same sort of question that you're all doing, asking, can we show it this way? Can we show it that way? So they've probably done 6 different iterations on this. Some of the data behind this, a number of us see it on a regular basis, but it's just kind of point in time data. And it's really hard to go back and trend that data. This brings that information, gives a real-time look into anyone who wants to see it. So you're not hunting and pecking for different reports. We're not doing static versions or reports that then have to get updated again. It's here, and it'll just continue to house the historical data and show more of a forward-looking, current historical and forward-looking view for it.
On the historical data, what we talked about is doing a snapshot, so there'll be a PDF file available, at least on the internal site. We'll have to talk about how we would do that for the external. So we were gonna do an every Monday snapshot because that's kind of our peaks, so that's the point in time that really concerns us as far as population wise. And then post those out as links that people can look on, so every Monday's going back in time.
Because this refreshes daily, you lose yesterday's data, right? So if I want to look back, what did last week look like? I'll have a PDF version of the Monday report, which you can look back on over time, and that'll just grow as we post those.
Right, so I'm gonna play what if with you for a minute. Can you copyright this software that you guys have designed?
The application that's used to build it is a Microsoft product. We're just putting data behind it and then designing. I don't think there's anything that we could really copyright about it.
Okay,
It's built in Power BI too, so.
It's someone else.
I'm just saying that this is a really nice package and stuff, and if there's any way to, other counties or other institutions could take advantage of this, we ought to market it.
I'm gonna
You know,
be,
just a really nice package. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
and then Waspik this week downtown and in the corrections one, I'm gonna bring it up on the. Because I think it's a useful tool. I don't wanna put these guys on the spot if they get a bunch of phone calls for it, but I think it's a useful tool, and I think this is a trend that you'll start seeing for all of these departments, is these dashboards, interactive dashboards.
Well, and it becomes. It will be, I hope it can become useful as we talk about, what are we gonna do around another public safety measure in the future? And what each of these little, squares with data are a discussion point with the community about, well, where do we want to be? It will help us drive, well, is 96.8 too long? What do we need to do in our system to drive that down? And what is our actual goal? Right? Like, if we want to get to a lower length of stay, what are all the things we need to invest in as a community to do that? So I think it helps having this, because then it'll inform conversations with the community about how we can move some of these numbers in the direction that we want to see them, right? So, I mean, these are just static numbers, but they could lead to setting outcomes that we want to see and then tracking, right? If we're getting towards those.
Right, without doing a PowerPoint after PowerPoint
Right,
after PowerPoint
right.
after PowerPoint. It's relevant data that we can use all the time. So I think if we're looking in the immediate future, I think we need to be reviewing our capacity and our statutory requirements and some of those challenges that are coming up. Because even if we go out for a measure one, which could be a year from now or 2 years from now, it's 5 years before we get a facility. And so we've got to have some of those conversations along the way here. And just, that honest dialogue that it's going to take to try to keep capacity in the jail. So, super proud of them. Thank you guys for having us this morning.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job. So, great. Appreciate it.
This is really helpful.
Diana.
What you put into that.
Take us to our end of our scheduled items. Is there any miscellaneous matters?
Thank you for coming. Eric, Don, thank you. Ken, you got to be.
All back.
Yeah.
Are there any executive sessions?
I think there's two that we could do this morning. Neither of them have to go this morning, but that's two for this week. With Jim Ignacio, who I can give a quick call and get him over here to do that one, and then I've got another one follow up with last week.
I would say let's just go ahead and get taken care of it out of the way.
Sure, absolutely.
Do you want to call Jim quick?
Yeah, let me
Scott, do you know what they are?
Yeah. Do they want to do that?
you can go either. Jim's.
You wanna get Jim first?
Ready to go on that if.
Yes. Okay, let's.
Yeah, I'll get Jim over and
These three could go now. That one, they're wanting.
So I'm just gonna.
So Scott and Jessica for one, and Jim Basie for another, and then Chris has got his third.
I just think that, yeah.
5 minutes on those three. So we have a lot of executive sessions. Goodness. Okay, so we're gonna go into executive session for 3 items this morning. I'm assuming no action is anticipated on all 3 of them.
None on any of them that I'm aware of, not after exec session.
Okay, and we want to do Jim's first. No. Okay. So we will do, same order. So we will do an executive session with, it'll include the commissioners, Scott and Chris Anderson.
Chris and Jim, yep.
And then Jim and Mace will be in, for pending potential litigation, 42.30.10 for 15 minutes. No action anticipated. Then we will have a second one with Scott Chesney and Jessica Pilgrim, along with Chris Anderson, Scott Simmons, and the commissioners. That will be getting pending litigation for 20 minutes, no action anticipated at the end. And then the third one that will be with Chris Anderson and Scott Simmons and the commissioners for pending potential litigation for 20 minutes, where we don't anticipate any action as well. And so we'll be in executive session for a total of 55 minutes. No action will be taken, and we will then be adjourning for the morning and for the day, and then be back tomorrow for our 2 o'clock. So it is now,
2 o'clock or 9 o'clock.
or 9 o'clock, sorry, 9 o'clock and then 2 o'clock. It is 10:40, and we will go into executive session for 55 minutes for the 3 reasons just stated.